afternoon and welcome to A Gathering Place hosted by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. It's good to see everyone this afternoon. We have a great show to look forward to. But before we get started, I want to acknowledge that today we are doing we are watching on major news channels and C-SPAN the homegoing celebration of John Lewis. John Lewis, who said, "Good trouble and necessary trouble are the gospel that we need to all live by." And without John Lewis, I couldn't have the type of conversations I am having on A Gathering Place. So this just adds an extra layer to what we do here at the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. So I want to just acknowledge Representative John Lewis, good trouble, and may he continue to cross those bridges as he transitions to a better life. Thank you, everyone. Today we are speaking about with Frank Knapp with the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce. And let's welcome Frank. Hi, Frank. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you, Marilyn, for the opportunity to be with you.
Oh, thank you for accepting our invitation. It is good to be with the fellow Chamber of Commerce CEO, President.
Yep. And
You
we should
know,
add that you serve on my board of directors for the South Carolina
yes,
Small Business
yes,
Chamber of
I
Commerce.
do. Yes, I do. And thank you. I certainly appreciate our reciprocal membership. I am young. I should say the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. We're young in the world of Chamber of Commerces. It has been a learning experience for us, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on so you could talk about the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce, your mission, and its importance to the people of South Carolina and small businesses. So, Frank, welcome. And if you could share with us, what is the mission of the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce?
Well, thank you. Back in 2000, I co-founded the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce. Our mission basically is to make government, primarily at the state, but also at the federal level, more small business friendly. So we've been working for 20 years to do that. We actually have,
Congratulations.
well, thank you. We actually have a very good track record for being a underfunded organization, but it's been very rewarding. We've had some very good successes. We're involved in a lot of issues that one would typically think that a state chamber in South Carolina would not be involved in, but we do get involved in some very important issues nationally, and of course also here in South Carolina. That we were basically put together because we didn't think there was any other entity out there representing the general interest of small businesses at the State House here in Columbia, South Carolina. And then as we grew and took on state issues, then I got involved in a lot of national organizations, and we also then added national issues to our portfolio. And I've been very fortunate over the years to represent small businesses in Congress and in hearings, and to weigh in the media on issues that are important to small businesses. And we always say that what it might be in the best interest of big businesses here across this country, it's not necessarily in the best interest of small business. And that's why it's important that we have a statewide chamber of commerce that is not beholden to big businesses in this state. And we are not. And that sometimes makes us some people who don't like what we do, because we don't toe the line with a lot of the other big business communities and other big urban chambers of commerce. But that's okay. We continue to battle for what is in the best interest solely of small businesses.
Very good. And I can certainly relate to that because one of the reasons I started the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce obviously is a more focused chamber, but it is to represent those small businesses within the Gullah community, African American businesses that don't have a voice at many tables. And some don't understand the policies and issues that impact small businesses. So, as I like to say, is we're not your daddy's chamber of commerce. We are an activist chamber of commerce. So I can certainly appreciate where the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce is coming from regarding policies and issues. So tell me, what are some of the policies and issues in the past that you have addressed that folks could certainly relate to or say, wow, I did not realize that
Yeah.
you had an impact on that?
So turning the clock back to 2000
Hmm.
and before that, we'll just look at the issue of state taxes. Most small businesses are not corporations. We are LLCs or S corps or sole proprietors. And in South Carolina, we pay any tax on any profit we make from our businesses. We pay on our personal individual tax returns. And the top rate for South Carolina tax return is 7%. And we recognized early on that there was something amiss about this, that small businesses in the state were paying a 7% tax, while corporations were paying 5%. And that just didn't seem to be fair. So early on in our existence, we took on that issue and beat the drums and said, yeah, we want parity here. We weren't necessarily looking for anything better than big business, but we wanted to be on the same ground as the big business. So we wanted to reduce the income tax, state income tax on any profit from our small businesses to 5%. And it took us a number of years, but we started beating that drum. And finally, after about 5 or 6 years, a law was passed and they gradually reduced the rate to 5%. That was ours. Nobody else was championing that. And so that's been very important to small business owners in South Carolina. You're making a profit. Yeah, and it was so popular that a couple of years later, the General Assembly decided, well, that was good. Let's reduce it to 3%. So eventually, they actually reduced the rate to 3%. But that would have never happened had it not been for what we did in the early 2000s. We also were in our early years were very involved in the issue of workers' compensation insurance. That there was really nobody representing small businesses in front of the judges when a workers' comp rate hike was being proposed. And we did that. We got ourselves some pro bono attorneys from the South Carolina Injured Workers Advocates. That's the trade association for workers' comp attorneys. And we intervened several times in the 2000s. One time, the insurance industry wanted to raise workers' comp rates for small businesses by about 31% average. We went in. We went in hard on that. We knocked that down in good ways. The next year they came in and they wanted, I can't remember, I think it was over 12% rate hike. We went in and we went for a judge and we got that knocked down. And we got some laws changed in South Carolina to address some of the operational problems with the way our workers' comp insurance program worked. And we basically tamed that beast. For years, rate hikes for workers' comp have been very, very minor. In fact, right after we won some of our battles, the rates were actually decreased, not increased. So that was tremendously successful for us, and it impacted every small business that has workers across this state. We got involved in other issues also. And we've added some, and some have dropped off over the years. But as time has gone on, we realized that there actually were more important issues for small businesses at the national level. That this state had, kind of one-off type of things that we could address those. But there were bigger fish to fry. There was the issue of health insurance. During the 2000s and the 1990s, health insurance for small businesses was increasing double digits every year. It was simply unsustainable. When we first were formed in 2000, we went around and we did a lot of listening sessions around the state. And the number one thing that we heard from small business owners was they couldn't afford health insurance any longer for offering their employees. And also, they wanted to get out of the health insurance business. That's not what they wanted to do. That's not how they made money. They offered it simply because they wanted to do something for their employees. And they felt they had to compete out there. So we worked on that for a long time in South Carolina. We joined with other organizations in the early 2000s, AARP of South Carolina, um, and some others, Appleseed Legal Justice Center, and we had proposals and we did some things to address the healthcare costs, uh, and even expanding Medicaid for kids up to 200% of the federal poverty level. That was stuff that we engaged in, and we got the cigarette tax raised to pay for it. Uh, but then, of course, President Obama came along, and in 2009, the whole effort on the Affordable Care Act uh, just it became really the beating drum to help small businesses. And we were big supporters of the Affordable Care Act. We had a couple of things we wanted out of it, and we got them to protect small businesses. But in the end, it's been very good, not only for small business, but of course for all working Americans across this country. And this pandemic, what we've seen is it's shown how fragile the employer-based health insurance model is.
It most certainly is.
And we, think of a viable alternative is to build on the Affordable Care Act so there can be a legitimate option for employers to help their people get on health insurance. They won't pay any of the premiums, but they can help their employees by giving them a raise. We actually a lot cheaper in the long run, and let the federal government then pick up the tab for subsidizing the premiums. And it's a great opportunity for small business owners to shed that administrative task and all the hours go into it for offering health insurance. But yet having their employees covered with some very good quality health insurance at affordable prices. So that we've been quite involved in the whole issue of health insurance. And then regarding taxes, yes, we've done a good job in South Carolina, but now we need to do a good job at the federal level. I co-chair an organization called Small Business for America's Future. We started out as Business Alliance for fair taxes, for tax reform it was. And then just recently we changed it to Small Business for America's Future. But the bottom line, since 2017, I've been working at the national level to say, that December 2017 tax reform for corporations that gave them a 40% tax rate cut permanently wasn't fair for small businesses because we didn't get that. Oh, we got a small deduction that was temporary, but we didn't get anywhere near that benefit of a 40% tax rate cut that corporations got, and it didn't increase the economy. I mean, they sold it as, they're going to invest this money and they're going to give raises and they're going to build factories and all this economy is just going to grow because of this tax rate cut that they gave the corporations. And the reality is, which we knew was going to be reality, they didn't do any of that. Corporations simply did stock buybacks.
Yeah.
And they used that money to purchase back their stocks to increase the value of their stocks for their shareholders and for their corporate execs.
Where if small businesses had received those funds, they invested back into their business.
Well, of course they would. Small businesses would have said, we've got some extra money that we can do the things we wanted to do. We can expand our services. We can hire some more people. We can give raises. Small business owners would have done that. But, the irony of the whole thing was they said, yeah, but we did something for small businesses. It might have only been 20% deduction and it's temporary, but we gave it to you. Small businesses had no idea what the value of any of that was because it was passed in December of 2017. The rules weren't even made up until mid to late 2018. And the only time they would have ever seen the impact would have been April of 2019.
Wow.
Because it was through our personal tax returns. That's the only way we had ever known what impact it would have had on us. So we needed to do better. We still need to do better. We champion the idea of rolling back this 40% tax rate cuts that corporations got and put small businesses on a fairer playing field, and using that money to do the things that we know we need to do in this country, whether it be expanding healthcare or infrastructure, or to pay for some of the other things that are being proposed at this time.
So you have a huge track record of accomplishment And the healthcare, speaking to that issue briefly, I personally benefit from the Affordable Care Act. It actually allowed me to leave my position to do what I'm doing now full time, because many people have a dream of starting a small business, but they don't leave where they're working. When one of the major reasons is that healthcare, the cost of healthcare. So kudos for the work regarding the Affordable Care Act. What are your thoughts? And you've mentioned and kind of touched on it briefly regarding small business and healthcare coming out of the pandemic. Where is the Small Business Chamber positioned regarding healthcare? Where would you like to see it go?
Well, we are supportive of the Affordable Care Act. We always have been supportive of the Affordable Care Act. We are in support of the proposition that we ought to take and put a public program, public option on the Affordable Care Act. We ought to lift the cap, the income cap for being premium assistance from the 400% of the federal poverty level. That most successful small business owners are above that 400%, so they don't get any benefit out of it, and unfortunately, they get all the increase of premiums fall on anybody who doesn't get subsidized. So small business owners themselves are being basically drummed out of the Affordable Care Act. They can't afford it. We need to lift that 400% cap, allow people making more money to get premium assistance so that their health care can be affordable also. We are big supporters of, through the Small Business for America's Future, of reducing drug costs, the pharmaceutical costs. That has been a big driver of healthcare costs. And if you notice that this past Friday, President Trump did have some announcements of some executive orders. Finally, after 3.5 years of talking about it, he has done that. But the problem is, even now, he's still giving the prescription drug companies an opportunity to meet with him this week to see if they have a better idea. We'll see. I have somebody who waits 3.5 years and 100 days before their reelection to say, "Oh, look at what I'm doing." Well, that was 3.5 years of small business owners and employees paying exorbitant costs for healthcare. There is no excuse for that. He could have done what he did Friday on day one when he was elected in 2018, took office in 2019. I mean, it should be 2017. So we have to take with a big grain of salt until we see actually something happen. But again, all of this could have been done 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, and we certainly hope for the best results, but we'll wait and see what happens. And
Yes.
hopefully it's not just smoke and mirrors because an election is coming up. It really is truly change
Well, we'll
to
see something
benefit small
this
business.
Tuesday. He apparently is supposed to be having meetings with all the pharmaceutical industry bigwigs and see what they say. So we'll see what happens after Tuesday. He may say, "Well, we're going to give them a month to come up with something." So that pushes it back into the end of August.
Which
Yeah.
speaks to the smoke and mirrors.
Well,
Well, because
or
talking about something
campaign
and
tactic. Let's put it that
actually doing something, you know, are two different things. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see on that. So regarding the pandemic and small businesses, I've noticed, and maybe I'm wrong, the task force to consider, like the reopening task force, were any small businesses represented on that in the South Carolina, what the governor put together?
Yes, there
Okay.
were small business trade organizations that were represented there.
Okay, very good.
Um,
Was your group on there?
no, we were not invited.
Okay.
And in retrospect, I'm glad we weren't invited because, well, you can see where South Carolina is.
Yes,
We're one of those surging states. Um, Something wasn't done correctly, and so I personally appreciative of the fact that my hand was not in that decision-making process at all. Not that I know that I would have made anything different or been able to do anything different, but certainly there are a lot of states, especially in the South, that made some very bad decisions about opening up too soon. And we are paying for it now. When I say we, I mean all small businesses. we're all paying for it. The economy is still in recession. We don't know when it's going to come out of that. The Small Business for America's Future did a poll and released it a week and a half ago, and had 1,500 of our people involved with us. I think that the 80% thought that COVID will disrupt business operations throughout the rest of 2020. So small businesses are hurting. The PPP loans help some small businesses, mostly those who had a working relationship and a good relationship with their financial institution. They were helped first, and then later on, others were able to get some of that PPP money. We don't know how many small businesses really have closed. A lot, especially restaurants and bars and other tourist-related things. But we don't know how many of them are going to survive. We just don't know. Those numbers are, we do polling. People do polling, but we have no idea. Those businesses that were shut down and wanted to reopen, our polling indicates that some of them were taking out a lot of debt to reopen. And if they have to close again, will they come back? The problem with that, Marilyn, is that we know that after the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, what really jump-started the economy and got us back into hiring people were small businesses. It wasn't big business. They were sitting on the sidelines. But it was small businesses that started rehiring right away and got the economy going again. Well, if we don't have healthy small businesses next year, if we get a vaccine, we're not going to be doing all that rehiring. If we have lost 50% of all our restaurants, where are those people going to be? They're still going to be sitting.
Where are they going to be? They're going to be unemployed.
Yeah, they're still going to be unemployed. So we have a lot of problems going forward, largely because of poor rollouts of federal actions and federal inaction going forward. We still don't know what's going to happen next week after those enhanced unemployment benefits from the federal government go away.
Yeah.
We've been arguing that from the beginning, before there was a PPP loan, the federal government had to put money on the street. They had to get money in the hands of the workers who had lost their job out of no fault of their own, so that they could pay their basics, their rent, buy food, and those types of things, which keeps the undercurrent of the economy going. And they still need that. I mean, we still have millions and millions that are unemployed because of this pandemic. I mean, only a third of all the workers who lost their jobs or were furloughed March and April have been rehired. 2/3 are still at home and they can't find jobs. And there are no other jobs they can go find. I guess they can go.
Businesses are going out of business.
We don't know how
much.
We're
not replacing them with new businesses. So where are these people going to go? So we're having a glut of unemployed and a lack of businesses because they're closing because they don't have that. They didn't have that infusion of money.
That's correct. So we'll see if Congress can ever decide how to move forward with extending PPP loans. Look, Small Business for America's Future has said, why don't we just take whatever money we have left? And we have about 24 million small businesses across this country who didn't get any money. Why don't we just start making grants? Why don't we put money in the hands of these small businesses that didn't get any loan from the federal government and help them survive? We should be looking at that as a path forward, and we should be getting money, continue giving money. I don't know what the level would be, $600 or $500 or there ought to be a continuation of the enhanced unemployment benefits so that those people can continue to pay their rent and food and everything else they need to do to keep that economy going. That's imperative. And so there are things that need to be. Oh, and one last thing, Marilyn. Anybody who did get a PPP loan for less than $150,000, it ought to be forgiven automatically because that's what Congress thought was going to happen. They thought they were going to this was going to be a grant. But they have all these hurdles that the Small Business Administration and Treasury has. Oh, you got to fill out all these forms and you got to justify that. No, 85% of the money, 85% of the loans were for $150,000 or less. A couple banking organizations basically said from their research that if we made all of them grants and forgive them right away, we could save 70 million hours of administration by the small business owners, which is equivalent to about $7 billion. Let's just simply forgive them all. But I'm not letting the people who got the bigger ones who got the millions of dollars off the hook. They need to demonstrate that they actually needed it, especially the ones who are traded on Wall Street.
Yes, because they pay people to do their paperwork. Small business owners don't pay people to do their paperwork like that.
Well, and if
And
we
you're
do,
right.
it
That
comes out of
those
our pocket.
hours in administration could be hours in creating something or producing or
Yeah.
providing a service. That's what keeps the doors of small businesses open. And if you're going to tie them up and doing paperwork, that defeats the purpose of being a small business.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're not out of the woods by a long shot. We really have got to handle going forward carefully, and we've got to do everything we can to keep our small businesses healthy.
Very good. Yes, yes, we do. And I just want to take a quick station break and remind everyone that you are watching A Gathering Place, brought to you by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. And we have as our special guest today, Mr. Frank Knapp with the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce. And this is a fascinating conversation about what's going on in the pandemic and small businesses and their history of advocacy for small businesses in South Carolina and on the federal level. So, Frank, I want to, in a few seconds, I do want to talk about what you're doing now regarding advocacy. But if I am here in South Carolina, how can I support the services in of the advocacy, excuse me, of the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce? How can
Well,
I get involved?
Well, it's very easy. You simply go to our website, which is www.scsbc.org. I think you're going to put it on the screen.
Yes.
Or just Google up South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce, and you'll see a membership tab there. Go to that. Our membership is pretty low compared to other organizations, and we encourage you to do that. Look, we while we do have people paying dues, we have a lot of supporters that don't, and our footprint is pretty large. And so, of course, we do appreciate anybody who wants to give us some resources and become a dues paying member. But we do have some benefits. I mean, if you're taking credit cards at your business, we can get you a discount on those with a vendor out of Charleston who does credit card processing. Same with payroll services. We have a vendor who will give discounted payroll services. So there are some things you can do. Oh, and you can get an Office Depot discount card, and we've had this for years. It's really great. It's a card that you go in, you buy something, you show them the card, and they give you a reduction on, especially printing. You can save up to 60% on printing.
That's huge.
It is huge, and I know
Mhm.
we've saved a lot of money that way. And then for some other items that you buy, there's a much smaller percent discount. But and to be honest, we do derive a some type of financial stream when you use those cards. So yeah, so go out and get yourself an Office Depot discount card from the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce. Use it. You save money. We make a little bit.
Very good. Thank you. So everybody, you heard that. So now you have a way to support the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce, and just go to their website and sign up and provide resources to them because they do some great work here in South Carolina and on the national level. Um, and just to remind everyone, the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce, we are a member of the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce. So if you join us, you will also receive benefits from the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce. And Frank, what we have done because of the pandemic, we usually charge $150 annually for our basic membership, but we've extended that to 2 years because we know our community, we need extra help. A lot of our restaurants, if they have not already closed, are in deep trouble. A lot of small businesses in the African American community have totally revamped their plans of even one starting or expanding. We've taken a massive hit for a variety of reasons. And one of the things that we found as I've been working out there building this chamber is so many of us, um, there are many African American businesses that are registered with the state, LLC, S Corp, um, self proprietor, but there are many of us who are not. And that's for various reasons. And we work on a cash basis, we work under the table, if you will. And they can't even think about PPP in the pandemic because they don't have any paperwork. They haven't been paying taxes. They don't have a relationship with a banker at all. They don't have payroll. They don't have anything. And so they've been slammed. And these are real businesses that really impact the community. And it may be the grandmother on the porch that sells candy after school or potato chips to make a little extra money, but also to keep food. They feed young folks in the neighborhood. So those are the type of businesses that we have like that, are businesses where people make their own soap, etc., but they're not quite legal where they really need to be. And quite frankly, they're totally left out of the PPP. And these are also businesses that they're hard to keep track of. I don't know if you have, but I've sat in mania kitchen or front porch talking to people about, you need to get your paperwork straight. You need to be registered with the state. And I know you don't want to pay taxes, but when things like a pandemic happen, or you're working at a home and something happens at your house and you don't have the proper insurance, it really does devastate not only that individual and family, it actually devastates the community because there's such a community institution and we don't realize that. So it's good to know that you're out here advocating for small businesses on a certain level, because many of these folks, and even myself in my journey, I'm learning so much, don't think about workman's compensation. They don't think about the taxes. They just know I don't want to pay taxes, but they don't understand the details of taxes, and the impact of taxes, and that you really kind of need to go in there and fight for yourself.
Right.
So it's good to know that you're out here fighting.
Well, and let me reinforce what you said about the PPP and a lot of the people you're talking about, the small businesses, the sole proprietors out there who don't have the paperwork, who operate a little bit off of the grid, so to speak. They were simply lost. They couldn't even, if they wanted to, they couldn't have gotten a loan because they didn't have the IRS records that were required.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big problem. So one of the things we need to look at, Marilyn, and one thing we're proposing through the Small Business for America's Future is that that government, Small Business Administration ought to look at ways to identify some universal problems that all small businesses have, and to develop the free technical advice to offer small businesses. It is important for a small business, if you're going to be successful, best that you operate like a legitimate small business. There'll be, well, maybe people don't like to pay taxes. I don't really mind paying fair share because I know I'm paying for services that help others.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying for services that help me. And only collectively can we do certain things. And so I've never begrudged the tax man, as long as it's fair. So people need to understand that we're all in this together. We all have to make our lives together better, and one way we do that is through government, and government is funded through our contributions to it. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about why millions of small business owners were locked out of the PPP, and that's actually why we kind of why we thought we ought to be giving grants to help some of those very, very small under the table type of businesses.
Yeah, they can relate to grants. It's kind of a nonprofit mindset and not a small business mindset. And a lot of people they think in terms of, well, I could go get a grant, and I'm saying you're a business, you're not a nonprofit. So it's an educational curve that needs to be taken to get folks educated. So speaking of that, this fall I'm actually starting an educational classes, and we're doing it under the headline "The Business of Doing Business." I have some retired former IBM folks and other folks that have retired in the Georgetown area, and they're putting the program together for me. And we are going to have folks, hopefully by the our main course, by the time you finish the main course, you will be a business. You'll have your paperwork together, and you can move forward and hopefully even getting some banking relationships together. Then we'll also have standalone classes for marketing, customer service, etc. And that's starting. So luckily, I have some good volunteers who are putting that together for me.
Well, good luck with that. I hope that
Thank
all
you.
goes very well. And should emphasize that when I'm talking about grants, it's during this pandemic. It's trying to get businesses to exist and help them out to stay alive till we get to pandemics. But you're right, grants don't typically go to a small business. That we have to get our money some other way. And on that issue, uh, there has. Let me just tell you that we are at a 40-year low in small business startups. 40 years we have low rate of small business startups in this country. Uh, this is really a crisis because economists will tell you most net new jobs, if not all net new jobs, come from businesses that are less than 5 years old and have 4 or fewer employees. Well, if we are not adding or replacing these small businesses, uh, this we're in trouble because those small businesses, the workers are not going to have a place to go. I mean, almost 50% of all workers work for a small business. If we don't have small businesses developing and forming and growing, our economy is going to be in very bad shape. Everybody's going to be working at Walmart, and I don't think we want that.
No, we
So
don't want that.
no,
No.
so one of the problems we believe, and I think most people accept this, that access to capital is one of the major inhibitors of somebody starting a small business or
Agreed.
growing a very small business. So we need to change that, we have proposed some ideas. And I proposed some ideas that we need to come up with a better way of getting capital on the street to start small businesses other than going through your lender. Look, private banks, they don't want to make 8, 10, 12, $15,000 loans. They just don't want to do it. First of all, every small business person to them is a big risk.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like risk. So unless you come with a lot of equity in a home or something, they really don't want to do business with you. And it costs them the same administrative costs to make a $10,000 loan as a $100,000 loan. Which one do you think they want to make?
Yeah.
So we have proposed with the Small Business for America's Future that this Small Business Administration ought to get in the business of making these micro loans.
Mm-hmm.
$20,000, they ought to be making them. Let's take that private gatekeeper out of the picture because we know they don't want to make these loans. Doesn't mean they shouldn't make larger loans, but if we're going to get small businesses started again and have a better rate of small businesses being started, we've got to get money out there. And what better place to do it but through the Small Business Administration? And so we need to do that. And we've been advocating that, and we'll see what happens.
Well, we can certainly get behind that because, yeah, we can certainly get behind that. So just we're going to talk about the advocacy some more, but before we do, I just want to also mention to you that I just started the Gullah Geechee Leadership Institute, which is the mission is to develop leaders that advocate for the policies and issues impacting the Gullah community. So when I say that we could get behind that, that's the organization that can get behind what you just said.
Excellent.
Because that's huge. That would put an infusion of cash into the economy that's needed through small businesses. Because that's the number one thing we hear. Also, we have folks who are doing the work, who have creative ideas, who are, for example, I have a company that a member of the Gullah Geechee Chamber loves Elements, organic hair, body products that she developed. She has a website, etc. But she had to go back to full time work because the lack of the cash infusion, the lack of access to funds to keep her just concentrating on that business, which was growing. I mean, she went from an idea, she went from her hair, personal hair issues, developing a product to help herself. It's a classic American story of a small business starting, to people saying, your hair is so beautiful. What are you doing? Her explaining to people, this is what I did. I created my own product. And then people going, I want to buy it. I want to use it. And then the light bulb going off. If people are willing to buy this, I can start a business. And
Right.
she did. Website, went to classes, joined the Gullah Geechee Chamber, marketing, selling, but hit that wall because now she was in a position she could just get that cash infusion to increase her inventory so she could expand her market, and couldn't do it because classic story of lack of access to the funds, um not having equity to go get loans. But all she needed was that basic, maybe micro loan, to get over that initial hump.
Right. Yep.
Classic story.
Yep.
So we
Well,
definitely could get behind that proposal.
thank you. I appreciate that. Of course, we're coming along with getting a loan from the SBA, a small micro loan that's easier to get. Would there be requirements that you get the technical assistance needed to start that business? Make sure you have all the business wherewithal so that you're a legitimate business and you understand how to how to use a computer and how you do bookwork. You'd have to have the basics to prove that you have the basics and to be able to get in line to get some of those direct loans from the SBA.
Well, we're hoping with the programs that we provide that we can also help on that level also with the education piece that we're doing, creating, and we'll be operating this fall, hopefully, of course, online because of the pandemic. So, Frank, what advocacy issues are you working on now? I know you're working on them. You've put out a lot, the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce, about the Santee Cooper situation. I do want to talk about that. Are there any other current issues that you're working on now that we need to be aware of?
Well, I mean, all the things that I've talked about are still live. I mean, they're still operable today. But we are doing Santee Cooper, and we keep on pushing our opposition for offshore drilling, and this is going to be a critical issue for the November elections. We do not endorse candidates. We endorse policies, and it is clear, having had 3.5 years of President Trump and every effort he's taken and told us it's exactly what he wants. He wants to drill everywhere off the coast, both Atlantic coast, Pacific coast, even the west coast of Florida. That is not good for tourism. It's not good for South Carolina. It's not good for the businesses up and down the East Coast. And so we know that Vice President Biden has taken the first day action pledge to, on his first day, use an executive order to ban all new oil drilling leases on public land and water. Well, that would stymie all that. We endorse that. In fact, we're the ones who are out there asking all the candidates in the Democratic primary to endorse that. We had 8 or so of them respond and say, yes, we support that. And fortunately, we have a candidate at the one candidate standing that has taken that pledge. So that's an important issue. But Santee Cooper, Santee Cooper, the state-owned public utility, has $6.8 billion debt. A lot of that from that nuclear project that they abandoned with SCG back in July 31st of 2017. It's been that long. And the General Assembly has made a decision what to do with Santee Cooper. We are advocating that it be sold to a investor-owned utility. There was a good proposal from investor-owned utility to buy it. They would remove all that debt off the back of the ratepayer. They would have reduced the rates by 18% automatically, and they would have really improved the circumstances of the ratepayers of Santee Cooper. Um, we do know there was a class action settlement a couple weeks ago of Santee Cooper ratepayers, and as a result of that settlement, all the money basically that they had paid in over the years for that nuclear debacle up in Fairfield County, they will accrue back over a 2-year period, and that's good. They've also agreed to reduce their rates by 8%. That's good. But it pales in comparison to the 18% that was proposed by this private investor-owned utility that they were going to do. And remove, but there's no offer to remove the debt. The debt still is Santee Cooper ratepayers. They have to pay this over time. There's no other way around it. So unless a private company comes in and erases that debt, the Santee Cooper ratepayer will eventually pay it, and we are opposed to that. We were opposed to SE&G ratepayers paying off their $5 billion nuclear debt. And we wanted to claw back every penny that they had. Those ratepayers had paid SE&G for since 2009. A lot of that was successful. But Santee Cooper, we want the same thing. We want the ratepayers not to have to pay any of that nuclear debt that they have, billions of dollars. And it needs to go to a private, investor-owned utility. The state does not need to be in the electric producing business. It just doesn't need to be there. If we have a viable alternative with a good track record of using renewable resources, renewable energy, which this one vendor did who wanted to buy Santee Cooper, the state needs to get out of that business. He says this isn't 1930s anymore. So we are advocating that let's do what's best for the ratepayer. Let's go ahead and get rid of all that debt. Let's reduce their rates even more if that investor-owned utility is going to make another offer, which I think they will. Santee Cooper just needs to be turned over to a investor-owned utility. That's it. I think we will get better management. They will be better because this investor-owned utility will cut costs that they can cut because they want to make a profit. You don't make a profit necessarily by raising rates. You cut your costs. And one way you cut your costs is get out of the coal business. The most expensive way of generating electricity is coal. Yet Santee Cooper is still hanging on to 2 coal plants, while the rest of the investor-owned utility world is retiring them quickly as they can. Not Santee Cooper. They like their coal plant. Don't know why, but they have no motivation over the years to retire those coal plants, to get into solar energy and natural gas. They just had no incentive because, well, they didn't have anybody looking over their shoulders. The board of directors made their own decisions, and we don't got shareholders clamoring for us to reduce our costs. So that's what the problem is. We got a state agency running the show for a utility providing electricity to a third of South Carolina. That's crazy,
It is, and they're not accountable to anyone.
We
And
need to get
what
out
we
of
have
that.
found,
But we need a track record.
and for full transparency, the Gallagher Chamber of Commerce, we are also for the sale of Santee Cooper for the reasons that you just cited. We really ultimately the ratepayers will be paying that debt, which means your rates are going to go up. So this brief lull with the settlement and the accruing and pulling that money back, that's going to disappear too because they have to get rid of that debt to be feasible. It's going to be that debt is an albatross around their neck. Even if they had the will to really push forward with green renewable energy, that debt is an albatross around the neck of Santee Cooper, really preventing them to make a real investment in green renewable energy. That is the future. And from day one, the Gallagher Chamber of Commerce, we have been about advocating for a better environment, advocating for careers and business opportunities in green renewable energy, and addressing climate change. Santee Cooper cannot check off any of those boxes. They're dragging their feet on the coal. You are correct that coal plants are expensive. They're expensive not only financially, they're expensive because of the environment. the damage that's being done to the environment. And just recently, I had the Sierra Club on. They were on to talk about their suit against DHEC, but it involved the Winyard Generating Station, the coal generating station here in Georgetown County, where I live, and two other locations, well, three total, two of which are owned by Santee Cooper. And the one in Georgetown has been polluting the Sanford River, which is literally maybe a 5-minute walk from my house, for years. We can no longer fish. Well, we could fish in the Sanford River, but you can only like eat once a week. Uh, and I remember when I was younger, we would go crabbing in the Sanford River. We would go fishing in the Sanford River, and I haven't been doing that for years because it's polluted. And one of the main polluters is that coal generating plant, the Winyard Generating Station here in Georgia. It literally has just destroyed that river. So coal is just very expensive financially and regarding the environment,
Right.
and
And
it really has impacted the Gullah community negatively.
let me just say also, I hadn't mentioned our we are big promoters of renewable energy for the reason of the climate change that you talked about. And the way
Mm-hmm.
we get to that is the rising seas. We've been involved in the issue of trying to raise public awareness for on sea level rise. From 2012, 2013, we've been involved in this. We've had projects along the coast. We've worked with the city of Beaufort to develop a plan for trying to be more resilient to up to a 3-foot sea level rise. We worked with talked to communities up and down the coast in Charleston and up your way. So fortunately, people now understand the seas are rising, and they're rising because of climate change. They're rising because of all that carbon that we're putting into the air from the coal plants and from cars and everything else that goes on. And our coastal tourism is in trouble because of that. Certainly, look at Charleston. Charleston's in big trouble. They're talking about a multi-billion-dollar project to put a fence around Charleston to protect it from hurricanes. But it's really in danger down there, and all along our coast. So anything that threatens tourism, which is essentially in South Carolina and along the whole Atlantic coast, a small business industry, we take seriously, and we have to work against it. And certainly, climate change is one of those things.
It is, and we agree with you wholeheartedly regarding the climate change. And a lot of what I have found, because the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce, we hosted environmental and energy conferences in Georgetown and Columbia. We're going to do some more online, but we've also hosted environmental and energy conversations around tables from St. Helena to Horry County, Sumter County, Columbia area, and of course Georgetown. There's a disconnect of knowledge about Santee Cooper and how it operates as a state-owned utility. And I'm not faulting and beating up on anyone. We just have to recognize that there's a lack of knowledge and education about Santee Cooper, how it operates, and the decision that the legislature faces. And so the Gullah Geechee Chamber, it's going to be our job. We've decided to go out there and really go full bore, starting to educate folks about this, because this is a huge decision facing this state, and it's going to impact directly what happens with Santee Cooper, but there are going to be ripple effects from that also, and we think it'll be positive, especially when it comes to climate change, because we really do need to take ownership of green renewable energies. South Carolina can be a leader on this and move forward with this, but we need some good, strong partners to do that. And we think a third party coming in, purchasing Santee Cooper, and getting it on the right track as soon as possible will help this entire state in many ways. It will certainly start helping us address climate change on that level. Because regarding climate change, a lot of people don't realize Santee Cooper, under Governor Mark Sanford, who had a climate change committee, who I can't remember the formal title of it, they were actually working against that committee for whatever reason. I don't know. That's past management, but it impacts us to this day because they didn't really take a deep look at what they could have done to improve the situation. And we're paying the price for that now. And here in Georgetown, in the North Santee community, there are now houses flooding off the Santee River that were not flooding 20 years ago. And there was actually a settlement, a multi-billion-dollar settlement from Santee Cooper, a previous lawsuit because of what was going on, and it has only gotten worse. So the responsiveness from the current Santee Cooper management is just not there. And that's just another reason that we've checked off those boxes through our research and said, we've just got to change this. We've just got to sell it. We have an opportunity now to sell it. I think from the research we've been doing, to a company that is strong in green renewable energy. It's a forward-thinking company, and we have an opportunity to sell it and really get on the right track when it comes to green renewable energies, when it comes to addressing climate change, which we know is a very nuanced, complex problem, but this is one piece of that pie to getting us on the right track when it comes to climate change and the green renewable energies in the state of South Carolina. And that's where the
Absolutely.
Gullah Geechee Chamber is coming from,
Oh, well, very,
amongst a
very
host of
good.
other reasons.
Well, very, very good. Well, Marilyn, thank you for letting me come on today
Well,
and to
thank you
have
for
this
coming.
conversation
Yeah.
with you. I've enjoyed it. I hope if any of your people out there watching want to learn more about the Small Business Chamber, it's scrolling
Yes.
across your screen.
Yes.
We're pretty transparent. Everything is there. What we're up to, and but I want to thank you for your leadership with your chamber, and thank you for serving on the board of directors for the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce also.
Thank you. Thank you for educating me. It's always been an educational process with your Chamber of Commerce, Frank. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. And I want to remind everybody that you are watching A Gathering Place, brought to you by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. And this Wednesday at 4 o'clock, we're going to have the South Carolina Emergency Management Department coming on, talking about hurricane preparation, especially during the time of the pandemic. So please come back on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Frank, once again, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will be talking later.
Thank you, Marilyn.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay.